been a while since we've provided an overview of current conditions in China. Given we received the PMIs over the weekend and we're only a little bit over a fortnight away from the National Congress, now is quite a fitting time to do so. When we look at the PMIs, our focus generally is on the official measures, which are the MBS PMIs. In addition, we also have the Kyson measures, which provide, I guess, more of a focus on the sort of the externally focused small and medium-sized enterprises across China. So in combination, these surveys provide quite a good cross-check as to current conditions, both with regards to domestic demand and also external demand as well. The September PMIs really show that the Chinese economy is continuing to carry quite significant momentum, and indeed, really, relative to our forecast of 6.7% growth for the year of 2017, it does actually suggest that, if anything, the risks are to the upside. This is despite the authorities' actions to try and rein in speculation and exuberance, both in the housing market and also the financial sector, and really speaks to, I guess, the underlying strength we're seeing in demand, both domestically, but also sort of quite a degree of strength from external demand as well. If we look at the official MBS manufacturing PMI, that actually rose to its highest level since 2012, and indeed at 52.4, it's actually about 0.4 percentage points above its long-run average. So that's quite a strong result, and that's really being driven, as I mentioned, by what we're seeing in the manufacturing sector, sort of benefiting from construction and also from external demand, and that's likely to sort of continue on for the rest of the year. We look at the new orders survey coming from that survey, and what we see there is that it's really quite supportive of this continued momentum persisting into the year end, albeit likely sort of starting to lose a little bit of momentum as we get towards the very end of the year. If we contrast that to the Kyson measure, again for the manufacturing survey, which I mentioned is more focused on those small and medium-sized businesses, and that did actually deteriorate in the month, but it still remains around its long-run average level. So it's suggesting, although the conditions for those smaller firms are actually a little bit weaker than for the larger firms, they're still doing quite well and are still seeing quite a significant amount of momentum. Turning then to the services sector, and we saw another quite positive result, with that series being at its highest level for the MBS measure since 2014. So again, a multi-year high. What we're seeing there is the sort of strength we're seeing in the manufacturing sector flowing on to the rest of the economy and providing momentum for that services sector, which is not only benefiting from the domestic demand, but equally, like manufacturing, is also getting some strength from the external sector as well. Again, for new orders or new business for the services sector, that's continuing to point to further momentum as we move through the rest of this year. And as for the manufacturing survey, it's likely to start to slow as we move into the end of the year and into 2018, albeit still remaining at quite positive levels. There is one downside risk to the economy that really does need to be highlighted from these surveys, and that's around employment. And so in contrast to the strength we are seeing in new orders and total production of both the manufacturing and services, employment has actually remained well below its long-run average levels and overall has actually softened in recent months. And that's really pointing towards businesses looking to try and, I guess, get the best out of their current capacity rather than looking to try and expand production going forward. If the Chinese economy is to see, I guess, a rotation much more towards the consumer and to see stronger consumption growth going forward, this needs to change. We need to see stronger jobs creation and also better jobs being created, so coming with higher incomes and also higher conditions. And this is really where we need to turn to the National Congress, which is, as I mentioned, a few weeks away now, and see sort of what they sort of look to do coming out of that meeting over the next 5 years to really, I guess, cement this rotation towards the consumer and providing those higher income, better conditioned jobs. China's National Congress is a 5-yearly event, and it really sets the medium-term policy agenda for the nation. Now, we continue to believe we're likely to see further sort of headlines coming out of the meeting, which are focused on increasing the wealth of the consumers class and also looking to try and continue the urbanisation process to give the benefits of development to the broad sweep of the nation. But how China actually gets to that point is really what is particularly key at the moment. And this is where One Belt, One Road comes in. Now, One Belt, One Road is, I guess, a national geopolitical sort of policy line which will look to actually revolutionise the way China actually engages with the West and the rest of the world. It includes transport links all the way through China, but more importantly through neighbouring countries, all the way to Africa and indeed to Europe. It looks to try and not only provide these markets with Chinese products in a more efficient and cost-effective way, but equally to try and actually move some of its existing capacity, which isn't particularly profitable, offshore to where it'll be able to use the benefit of lower wages, and equally then to be able to upskill its own population to higher technology and higher productivity jobs in the manufacturing sector, but also in services. And this is the way that they will be able to get to those higher income, better conditioned jobs, which will drive wealth creation and lead to them to be able to have a higher standard of living going forward. And so what sort of comes out of this meeting is going to be quite key in terms of understanding both the pace at which these developments will occur, but also the potential roadblocks that might stand in their way. One Belt, One Road is obviously not a short-term solution. It is definitely a long-term plan that will really redefine China's geopolitical engagement with the rest of the world. That being said, what really matters to that program is the decisions that are made in the near term, and this is why we'll be looking with interest at the sort of outcomes of the National Congress, and we'll come back after that announcement and provide you with some further detail, both with regards to the opportunities but also the risks that we do see to that outlook. We'll see you next week.